come for many places, but also some dry and bright weather, particularly across a central slice of the UK. Now, we currently have an area of low pressure out towards the west, and this is driving some blustery winds and some wet weather due to a frontal system that's marching its way across. We have a front clearing away towards the north as we go overnight, but lingering across the far north of Scotland, and then a front pushing eastwards, but also lingering across some southern southeastern parts, so a fair bit of rain to come. But in between those two wetter areas where things will stay pretty mild, there's some drier, clearer weather, and here things could turn a little fresh. Some rural spots could drop into low single figures perhaps. But in the south, where we have this cloud and rain, it is going to be a wet and blustery start to the day for many places. The rain could be quite heavy, particularly in the southwest. Across much of Wales and central England, dry but cloudy to start. Brighter across much of Northern Ireland, Northern England and southern Scotland. Across the rest of Scotland, though, quite cloudy, outbreaks of rain, and some of the rain could be a little bit heavy at times as well. As we go through the day, some of that rain across parts of Scotland, well, that's going to continue, may edge a little bit further southwards towards the borders area. Meanwhile, the heavier, more persistent rain in the south, that pushes its way northwards, and that's going to spread across Wales, the Midlands and into northern England later on as well. It is still mild out there at the moment, especially so towards the southeast. Once that rain clears away, there'll be some brightness, and so we're looking at temperatures reaching around 16 Celsius. Then Thursday, a bit of a messy day for many places. Some rain across parts of Scotland, northern England and Northern Ireland. Bit of rain in the far south of England as well. Drier, brighter across the Midlands and Wales and the far north of Scotland, seeing a few showers. And then on Friday, colder air pushing into northern parts. Meanwhile, some heavy rain and strong winds affecting some southern areas. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. There's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 the best year yet. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag, and we'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
Extra £29 billion per year, £7 billion. With £52 billion, £20 billion, £39 billion over the next decade.
It's the economy, stupid, or is it? Unemployment has reached a 4-year high, wages are weakening, and nearly 1.8 million people are looking for work. Why is the economy so weak, with private sector pay falling relatively and public sector pay rising? It's becoming clear that excessive government spending is causing Britain's economic stagnation and driving Britain's rising unemployment. Also tonight, British justice system is failing. A leaked memo reveals hundreds of female prisoners may be moved into costly new centres to release space in women's prisons as men's jails are overcrowded and expected to run out of space by next spring. While ministers flirt with more early release schemes, can the prison system cope? Plus, I think my producer knew that happens to be my favourite aria from any piece of opera. The most beautiful words from the Queen of the Night. Anyway, dynamic pricing is back in the spotlight as the Royal Ballet and Opera tickets for Wagner's Siegfried rise to a record £425, despite receiving millions in public subsidies, with demand-led pricing becoming the industry norm. Should the government step in to regulate ticket costs, or is this a case of supply and demand in action? And
there were posters all over the place telling you we need more people in the forces. And I thought, why don't I join up?
to mark Armistice Day, a regular panellist and friend of the programme, Dr. Tessa Dunlop, spoke to a 101-year-old former gunner girl, Grace Taylor, to hear about her experiences from World War II. State of the Nation starts now. My most pugnacious panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the journalist and broadcaster, Michael Crick. As always, I want to know your views. Let me know what you think. Mailmog at gbnews.com. But now it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Jacob. Good evening to you. 2 minutes past 8 here in the GB newsroom. The Culture Secretary says the BBC must uphold the highest standards, but has warned against sustained attacks on the broadcaster. Lisa Nandy's been addressing the Commons about the crisis engulfing the BBC, saying the concerns are serious and that it has faced criticism from all sides for its coverage of highly contentious and contested issues. It comes after outgoing Director General Tim Davie told staff the BBC must stand up for its journalism a day after President Trump threatened to sue for $1 billion. Ms Nanny disagreed with some in the House over allegations of institutional bias.
Those in this House attacking the BBC from left and right for not expressing views they agree with should consider just what is at stake. There is a fundamental difference between raising serious concerns over editorial failings and members of this House launching a sustained attack on the institution itself. Because the BBC is not just a broadcaster, it is a national institution that belongs to us all.
Well, President Trump's given the BBC until Friday to publish a full retraction of the Panorama programme or face legal action. Shadow Culture and Media Secretary Nigel Huddleston says the corporation requires institutional change.
These recent leadership changes are a response to the growing number of examples of bias in the BBC, one of which has resulted in a potential $1 billion lawsuit. We all want the BBC to succeed, to be the best possible version of itself, but that requires institutional change and far more than a few moves at the top.
The Justice Secretary's admitted another prisoner may have been released by mistake last week, saying authorities aren't sure if that person's still at large. David Lammy confirmed to MPs that 3 mistakenly released prisoners remain on the run, adding that none of the 3 are convicted sex offenders. The Justice Secretary's been facing questions in the Commons after the government confirmed earlier that 91 prisoners have been freed by mistake since April this year. Last week it emerged 2 inmates were released in error following the high-profile case of Hadish Kabatu, the now deported migrant at the heart of protests in Epping. An NHS manager who sexually abused and raped young girls after grooming them on Snapchat's been jailed for 28 years. Paul Lipscomb pleaded guilty to 34 offences against 6 girls he met on the social media platform, including sexual grooming, sexual assault and 2 counts of rape of a child under 13. Police discovered he'd used fake names and lied about his age to win over his victims. Snapchat says it is committed to combating sexual exploitation of young people. A woman caught with £5 billion worth of Bitcoin has been jailed for more than 11 years and 8 months for money laundering. Kian Jimin went on the run after officers seized more than 61,000 Bitcoins in a raid of her £5 million rented home in Hampstead Heath in North London. She was caught when they raided an Airbnb in York last April. Police say she fled China in 2017, arriving in the UK on a false passport, and then bought the Bitcoin using funds stolen from thousands of Chinese pensioners. It is the country's biggest cryptocurrency seizure. Finally, the Queen and the Princess of Wales have attended services to mark Armistice Day as events took place around the country. Kate was at the National Memoriam Arboretum in Staffordshire as the end of World War I was commemorated with a 2-minute silence. And Queen Camilla attended a wreath-laying ceremony at Paddington Station in London. The Prince of Wales earlier sent a message to young people explaining the significance of wearing a poppy. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 9.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Britain's unemployment rate has risen above 5%, the highest level in more than 4 years. Nearly 1.8 million people are looking for work, the highest since the COVID pandemic. Long-term unemployment is also rising, with more than a quarter of those out of work failing to find a job for every year. In the last 3 months, there were 134,000 redundancies, again the highest since 2021. And wage growth is slowing. The average regular pay increase fell to 4.6%, the lowest in 3 years, while private sector pay is growing at 4.2%. The labour market is weakening, businesses are hiring fewer workers, and people are finding it hard to secure stable jobs. But what's the real cause of this rise in unemployment and the hit to wages? Well, it's penal tax rates to fund excessive government spending. Whilst private sector pay is slowing, public sector pay has risen by 6.6%, significantly faster than the parts of the economy that generate the tax revenue needed to pay for public expenditure. The issue isn't just a weak economy, but an imbalanced one. It's an economy that's being pulled in opposite directions. A strained private sector that is cutting jobs and containing pay, competing with a public sector whose costs continue to rise at a pace faster than growth, productivity or tax revenues. And this is the consequence of Labour opening the taps for public expenditure. When government-funded paychecks grow faster than the economy that pays for them, the result ends up being higher taxes, higher borrowing and higher interest rates, all of which weigh disproportionately on the private sector, the engine we rely on to generate jobs, investment and growth. That's why the market reaction to unemployment data was so marked. The FTSE went up whilst the value of the pound dropped. Investors immediately bet that the Bank of England would be forced into cutting interest rates to counteract the downturn. But as inflation is still above target, monetary policy will be of limited effect because it's the fiscal policy that is inflationary. Monetary policy has to counteract that. We should not misinterpret today's unemployment figures. While the economy is slowing, the Labour Party is dwindling, these are symptoms, not the cause. The bigger problem is that the state has grown faster than the economy. Public spending has expanded beyond the private sector's ability to pay for it. In simple terms, expenditures at 45% of GDP, incomes at 38%. That 7% gap is unaffordable, as tax revenue almost never gets above 38%. And until the government confronts this imbalance, we will continue to see the same pattern: slowing growth, rising unemployment, stagnating private sector wages, and increasing pressures on the public finances. If we want a stronger labour market and a healthy economy, the solution isn't to cut interest rates or stimulate demand, it's to restore balance, because no economy can thrive when its most productive sectors are being squeezed to fund spending commitments that are straightforwardly unaffordable. That's the 7%, £190 billion of excess expenditure. As always, let me know what you think. mailmog@gbnews.com. But now my most pugnacious panel is champing at the bit to give their views. Kelvin Mackenzie and Michael Crick. Michael, we are just spending too much money. The deficit's been rising because tax revenues have slightly dipped and expenditure has gone on rising.
Well, I mean, you've been very critical of the government over public sector wage rates. Now, you know, some of those public sector settlements, as we've discussed on several occasions before, particularly those in the health service, were to deal with obviously strikes, but behind those strikes, the lowering of wages over a long period, and the fact that large numbers of doctors and nurses are going abroad, and we can't afford to lose them from the health service, because that actually probably makes it even more costly, because you're having to bring in locums and people from agencies and all of that. So some of this you can't help. The other thing you haven't mentioned there, and I wonder, I'm not an economic expert like you, but at what point does AI start to really kick in? And is it already happening? It seems to me, I mean, you know, people assure me, don't worry, AI will lead to more jobs in the end. But it seems to me that it's likely to lead to, certainly in the early stages of it being introduced in a big way, and that is already happening, it's likely to lead to job losses. And then people, with luck, start investing in new enterprises, and that gradually builds up the employment figures again, although I'm sceptical whether actually that will ever happen. But AI surely at some point is going to have an effect on the unemployment figures.
AI will have a very important effect, perhaps even
but when
on the
do you
public
think it will
sector
happen
in due course. But I want to bring Kelvin in, because this economic problem seems to be having an effect in Downing Street, with a really interesting report from Pippa Creer, a very distinguished political journalist, that they're circling the wagons to protect Keir Starmer. That's a bad sign, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, they've got an exclusive story in The Guardian tonight, and I think it followed a story in The Times today, which indicated that Wes Streeting and Rayner might be a double act of joy for us all to take the place of Starmer. And actually, this is a thorough piece of in-depth political reporting, which is saying, actually, Starmer has allowed a message to be briefed: I will take you on, I will fight you for this, and pointing out that he doesn't believe one of the aspects of the story, which is that 50 frontbenchers will stand down. This is what he's been told, or this is what his people have been told, will stand down in the event that November the 26th lands badly. Now, you don't have to be a genius, do you? That if income tax is going up by tuppence, you've broken the manifesto, large houses are going to be taxed, the middle classes are going to be squeezed in a way that they haven't been squeezed since Healey, you're not going to believe that this is not going to land badly. So actually, Starmer's getting his retaliation in first, and it's described in there. This is the right pushing back against this, in which people like Shabana Mahmood have also been questioned their loyalty, and somebody on their behalf has said a circular firing squad against your most loyal cabinet ministers is not helpful. I haven't read anything like that during the 17 months of the Starmer, and I would say that he is now in play. He may not be in peril, but he's in play.
And Michael, this is quite serious, isn't it? Because I remember being on the other side of this when
you were stirring it up.
When we were circling the wagons, we were circling the wagons for Boris Johnson.
Oh, I see. You mean later on? Yes, right. Yeah. Rather than you attacking Theresa May.
No, that was earlier. And when you're circling the wagons, that means you're already in trouble. And when you're briefing to a friendly newspaper that that's what you're doing, and it'd be a great mistake to get rid of your leader because of the effect on the financial markets, that's not a sign of strength, is it?
No, but I mean, you know, on Starmer's side of it, I would point out that the Labour Party has always traditionally been much more reluctant to get rid of its leaders than you lot. And indeed, The only case it really happened, and it took years, is when finally Gordon Brown persuaded Tony Blair to announce a date when he was standing down. But you remember all that stuff we had at the end of the Brown premiership, and James Purnell resigned and various other people resigned, and we thought it was all about to happen and Miliband was about to declare, and then he got cold feet, and Brown survived till the election. And the same with Harold Wilson in the 60s. You know, I know what's going on. It was his favourite speech. Yes. I'm going on. Big cheers, and he was saved. And the Jenkinsites had to withdraw. As for Wes Streeting, I mean, the trouble with if he's running a campaign, you know, he's very unpopular amongst Labour Party members. They decide these things. So unless it's a coronation and the members aren't involved, it's going to be difficult for him.
Isn't Michael's lesson for somebody like Wes Streeting or Ed Miliband, whoever it may be, that actually you've got to get on with it, that waiting upon events means that the moment passes?
Right. And I think Michael knows a thing or two about the King in the North that would indicate, and that's what I would believe, that Streeting actually believes he should strike quickly, because I suspect there will be others that will flood down from Manchester who might be more attractive to the left of the party, certainly more attractive than a Miliband character, and obviously more attractive than Rayner, who I very much doubt runs. But Starmer, there is no sense that Starmer is a popular character. He turned out to be a winner at a time when the other side, the Conservatives, were a total and complete shambles, who basically took our country right to the edge. Unfortunately, Starmer hasn't pulled it back. He's pushed it a little closer. I would say that the idea that Number 10 feels that it has to brief in that depth against potential competitors and rivals, I find extraordinary, with 2 weeks to go to the biggest budget that the country has probably faced in probably 30 years.
Can I say a bit about Burnham?
No, we ought to go on, unfortunately. But if the assassination could trammel up the consequences, that is the great thing for them to ponder. Thank you to my panel. In a moment, a leaked memorandum reveals hundreds of female prisoners may be moved into costly new centres to free spaces in women's jails as men's prisons are overcrowded, whilst ministers flirt with more early release schemes. Can the prison system cope?
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, this Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Some schools are banning birthday cakes from the classroom.
Yeah, banning parents from sports. And now the great headline in the Telegraph: Labour puts the knife into nursery birthday cake. Apparently, new guidelines for the Department of Education are saying that you should not send your child into school with a cake when it's their birthday, because it's bad for them, it's going to make them fat, all the rest of this stuff. It's the nanny state once again on the march, isn't it?
Is this a new thing? Because I don't remember ever taking a birthday cake.
Oh, yeah, we
on my
did.
birthday.
We
did too.
Took a birthday cake.
And I think some schools I've seen that have a fake birthday cake, which is not nearly as nice, with a fake cake with a candle on, so you sing happy birthday and blow out the candle. But you know, I love the way Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Oh yes.
European GB News presenter has waded into this row, saying, well, my children's nanny sends little cakes into school for all the children.
Absolutely.
He said
the nanny sends them in.
Only socialists
know what is acceptable and what isn't.
He says only socialists want to stop such innocent pleasures. And I think there's a real point about that. One school, actually, Broxburn Primary in Harrow, is saying, don't send your child in with a cake. Donate a book to the school library instead. I mean, that is just not a good substitute, is it?
Cakes?
No, my kids are 1 and 3, so they're not quite at that age yet. But
it'll happen.
It does it. I mean, it should, because
there doesn't have to be a big splodgy cake. It can just be something.
But even if it's a bit of a treat, there's no way the calories of school birthday cake are the calories making people fat.
No.
So we should focus on the big issues rather than ruining this fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not a killjoy. I think kids should have a bit of fun. I just didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah,
it's all changed since my day.
I think maybe it's the teachers who don't like the sugar rush the kids get afterwards, and they can't keep control in the classroom.
GB News. The People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. I'm still Jacob Rees-Mogg, and we were talking about the economy and Starmer, and your mailbags have come steaming in. David says tax revenues will never exceed 38% of GDP by taxing the rich. He's absolutely right, they never do. What we see is sheer socialism, the politics of envy. And Tom says 5% unemployment now. Could there be a correlation between this figure and the last budget? To which the answer is yes. And Sam, Labour has a tendency to tax the industrious, to waste it on the feckless. Hard but fair. Britain's justice system seems to be falling apart. Hundreds of female prisoners could be moved out of prison to free up space in overcrowded men's jails, which are reportedly forecast to run out of room by next spring, according to leaked Ministry of Justice documents, potentially costing tens of millions of pounds. Plans would divert female offenders into new residential centres, which cost a whopping £100,000 per person per year, more than double the cost of keeping them in prison, and considerably more than Eton fees. Meanwhile, ministers are considering sentencing changes that would see some inmates released after serving just a third of their term, in addition to those, of course, who are released by mistake. Can the prison system cope? Well, I'm joined now by a former prisoner governor, Rona Hotchkiss. Rona, thank you very much for joining me. This seems not a sensible policy at all, extremely expensive, and just sort of moving the deck chairs around on the Titanic.
Oh, I completely agree. And I mean, we can hardly ask for details since it's a leaked memo, and I dare say no one will comment. But where are these new centres that the women are to be held in to come from? You can't throw these up overnight. So I reckon that this would take 3 to 5 years to put into place, by which time Labour may well not be in government. I doubt very much we'll ever see this happen, Jacob. But you're absolutely right. The root cause of all this is that, whether we like it or not, across the UK, apart from Northern Ireland, we send far too many people to prison. I don't believe that the people of Scotland, England and Wales are 3 times more likely to commit crime than the people of Northern Ireland, yet that's how many more times we send people to prison per capita.
Do you think there's a fundamental problem that it's the Home Office that is in charge of sentencing and the Ministry of Justice that then has to deal with it? And so the Home Secretary can always sound tough and say, let's have longer sentences. And then it's the poor old Lord Chancellor who has to deal with it on a budget that the Treasury keeps on cutting.
Well, there's definitely some terrible disconnect between the two, and it seems to be a lack of communication around this. But I do think that what we're seeing is a crisis born out of cuts in funding over many years, including by the previous government. This isn't just a Labour-created problem, and you can see the trend coming over the last 10 to 15 years. Yes, it's underfunding. Yes, it's short staff. Yes, they're casting around desperately to try and find more space. But I don't see how this will actually create more space.
And who would you not imprison to get down to Northern Ireland levels for Scotland, England and Wales? What type of criminals are we sending to prison who you think could be punished in other ways or potentially not punished at all?
Well, I don't agree with not punished at all, but certainly I think you could send a lot fewer non-violent offenders to prison, minor drug crimes and so on, crimes of acquisition, that kind of thing. But of course, these are not cheap options, Jacob. You can see the kind of per capita cost they're talking about with this. Keeping people in the community is not a cheap option. That's the other problem. Where are they going to get all the extra staff to work in these residential places that the women are going to be held in? It clearly is something that has not been properly thought out or costed, or at least not that we've seen the detail of.
All right, well, Rona, thank you very much for joining me. I'm now going to go to my panel. Kelvin, is Rona right that we've simply got to send fewer people to prison? Otherwise, we will carry on with this problem and non-violent offenders and so on probably shouldn't be in prison so much.
Well, I heard you kind of arch your voice when the suggestion was that people would be let go on a third of their sentences. I know a case of somebody who got 9 years, I know him, got 9 years for a major tax swindle, and he will probably be out, regardless of all this, in 2.5 years. They are hurrying people out the door at 100 miles an hour right now to try and avoid what's going on here. I mean, I thought she made some very good points there. But the truth about the matter, it is a Conservative problem, this. Nothing was done in 14 years. Nobody has any right to criticise. In fact, at least Labour are trying to do something about the damn thing. And I don't approve of it all. But what is the choice? We have too many criminals in our country, and we have too few prisons. So something has to be done. So people are being actually given Christmas presents and waved a fond farewell from jail. It is an incredible moment for our country.
And we have a crazy system of costs that when the Conservatives were trying to build prisons, which they failed to because of planning laws, each prison cell, individual one, was going to cost £250,000. It was just a ridiculous money for something that you could build, I would have thought, much more cheaply.
Well, and one would imagine a hotel is a lot cheaper than that. Yeah, it's I think an important player in this process way back in 2010 was Ken Clarke, who allowed his budget. You remember, Ken Clarke had been Chancellor in the John Major government. Right. And he came back into David Cameron's government at a lower level as Justice Secretary and Lord Chancellor. And I think he sympathised with George Osborne as an ex-Chancellor himself and allowed too much of his budget to be, I think it was something like 25% or something.
But he also was quite a liberal Conservative.
Yes.
And on the side of not locking up too many people, which needed to be the concomitant of the cut in the budget. But the Home Office was always led by people who wanted to lock everybody up.
And you have this crazy thing whereby sentences are toughened one way or another for certain crimes. Right. But then when it actually comes to them being in jail, they're allowed out at a smaller percentage of the
which is almost
so
exactly the same as it was before the sentence was
exactly.
toughened.
And
yes.
as Rona said, the trouble is it would be great if you could find ways of punishing non-violent offenders in other ways, community service and so on. But all of those things are expensive. You need people to invigilate and supervise. Otherwise, they don't turn up, and it becomes a joke.
The country wants people who have committed crimes to go to jail for a long time. For instance, supposing while drunk you knocked somebody down, or you had a crash and you injured somebody. I want that person to face a 2 or 3 year sentence. But now we're in a position where actually I can understand the reverse of that argument, which says, actually, do you know what? We've only got space for violent offenders. What are we going to do?
Unfortunately, we're very short time today, but we've got a statement from the Ministry of Justice. We're so lucky, saying we do not comment on leaks, which is so untrue. Governments always comment on leaks, but never mind. The government has been clear. Whenever they say clear, they're not. Never mind. The prison system it inherited, blame your predecessor, is not working, leading to more crime, not less, which is why we continue to explore more options to rehabilitate female offenders in the community, which means they're confirming the leak. The most serious offenders will still go to prison. Well, I hope I decoded that statement for you. Thank you to Rona and my panel. Coming up in just a moment. Well, dynamic pricing is back in the spotlight as Royal Ballet and Opera tickets for Wagner's Siegfried rise to a record £425, demand-led pricing becoming the industry norm. Should the government step in to regulate ticket costs, or is this a case of supply and demand in action?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
A lot of fine weather at the moment across the Med, but whilst it's warm in Spain, there is some wet and windy weather moving through Madeira, approaching the Channel Islands and also affecting Portugal. Later, that's going to push through parts of Spain. But ahead of it, we've got a southerly airflow and above average temperatures, a lot of sunshine through Italy into Greece as well. Keen breeze here, 1 or 2 showers, and you can see that unsettled weather affecting Tenerife on Thursday.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Good evening. It's time for your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through the next 24 hours, there will be more rain to come for many places, but also some dry and bright weather, particularly across a central slice of the UK. Now, we currently have an area of low pressure out towards the west, and this is driving some blustery winds and some wet weather due to a frontal system that's marching its way across. We have a front clearing away towards the north as we go overnight, but lingering across the far north of Scotland, and then a front pushing eastwards, but also lingering across some southern southeastern parts, so a fair bit of rain to come. But in between those two wetter areas where things will stay pretty mild, there's some drier, clearer weather, and here things could turn a little fresh. Some rural spots could drop into low single figures perhaps. But in the south, where we have this cloud and rain, it is going to be a wet and blustery start to the day for many places. The rain could be quite heavy, particularly in the southwest. Across much of Wales and central England, dry but cloudy to start. Brighter across much of Northern Ireland, Northern England and southern Scotland. Across the rest of Scotland, though, quite cloudy, outbreaks of rain, and some of the rain could be a little bit heavy at times as well. As we go through the day, some of that rain across parts of Scotland, well, that's going to continue, may edge a little bit further southwards towards the borders area. Meanwhile, the heavier, more persistent rain in the south, that pushes its way northwards, and that's going to spread across Wales, the Midlands and into northern England later on as well. It is still mild out there at the moment, especially so towards the southeast. Once that rain clears away, there'll be some brightness, and so we're looking at temperatures reaching around 16 Celsius. Then Thursday, a bit of a messy day for many places. Some rain across parts of Scotland, northern England and Northern Ireland. Bit of rain in the far south of England as well. Dry, bright across the Midlands and Wales and the far north of Scotland, seeing a few showers. And then on Friday, colder air pushing into northern parts. Meanwhile, some heavy rain and strong winds affecting some southern areas. Bye-bye.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, this is GB News in association with Radio 3 for the evening. Dynamic ticket pricing is back in the news as the Royal Ballet and Opera's new pricing system means some tickets have hit a record £425. The nearly 6-hour-long Wagner epic Siegfried has gone well above the standard £19 entry fee point, despite the organisation receiving £22 million a year in taxpayer-funded subsidies. The company says demand-led pricing is essential for sustainability, but similar practices across the entertainment industry have led to public discussion for music and sporting tickets. Is it up to the government to regulate the cost of the entertainment industry? Well, my panel is here, Kelvin Mackenzie and Michael Crick. Oh, Kelvin, this is great, isn't it? It's capitalist, but they should lose their subsidy as well.
Yes, well, I agree with that. But the other aspect to it is 425 quid. It's neither here nor there. I paid £500 a head for some Coldplay tickets the other week. I have no idea whether Coldplay were actually there. I was miles away from it, and I have no idea how much the people paid who were much closer. And my wife and I went to an Albert Hall thing in which the ticket prices were even higher than that. So my advice to anybody watching this is get stuck in and grab those tickets at 400 quid while they
It's
are.
all very well for an ultra-rich person like you, Mr. McKenzie.
Ultra-rich, you either pay it or you don't go.
Well, yeah, you pay it, and most people couldn't pay it, and I certainly wouldn't
there
pay
were
that.
100,000 there that night.
Even if my team got to Wembley, I wouldn't pay that amount. But it seems to me the danger you have here, if you say, OK, leave it to the free market, allow the Opera House to charge what it likes, get rid of subsidies, it then becomes a very rich activity. It is an activity for incredibly wealthy people.
It still is, pretty much, isn't it?
Well, if you sell tickets, I presume...
They do sell some tickets in the gods.
I don't know about opera and how it works, but if you sell tickets for, that students can afford and so on.
But Glyndebourne, which receives no public subsidy for its opera house, sells cheap tickets too, and expensive tickets. I think allowing market pricing means you can wean the Royal Opera House off its subsidy. And actually that's essentially poor people paying for rich people's hobbies. That's why I'm against these subsidies.
But if you can use subsidies, or some subsidy, to force them to have a decent number of poor tickets so that you make opera available to the masses, which is how opera is actually much more available, it seems to me, to the masses in most of Europe than it is here. It's regarded as...
Have you ever... Right, I make 2 points about that. Have you, over the years, having walked past the Opera House, by the way, I have never, ever, ever seen a poor person. I have seen huge rollers, huge Bentleys, immensely well-dressed ladies and handsome blokes taking everybody in. I've never seen the skint and the dim. And the other aspect is really in the theatrical world, and I know this through my wider family, if you have challenged children you get the most fantastic discounts where you're allowed to take a carer as well. Where the price, by the way, they don't have to do this. These are major theatrical hits that you are getting in for the very point that you make, done by the owners. And it is the owners are doing fantastic. They could sell those tickets for £1,000 each, and actually they end up selling them for 90 quid for two. It is fantastic. So this is something that gets no publicity, and yet the theatre owners, to my mind, are absolutely fantastic people.
Yeah, well, the Mousetrap looked after somebody I know who went there and can't do a lot of stairs and was looked after absolutely brilliantly, and the tickets were a very fair price. So I think the private sector can and does do this. And so my issue with the Opera House is you shouldn't have it both ways. Dynamic pricing I'm all in favour of, but subsidy, I think, is unfair if you're dynamic pricing. If you're setting the price at the market rate, you shouldn't then be sucking on the government lollipop.
Well, if the subsidy is the only way to ensure that that opera becomes available to the masses, then I think you could justify it on those grounds. And this dynamic pricing, of course, doesn't just involve selling tickets at very high... You've got the whole thing of the Oasis tickets last summer, and everybody going online for hours and the price going up and up and up.
Dynamic pricing could also, when they put on operas that people don't really like, bring the price right down, and there'll be some of the operas that they find they'll have to give away.
No, and I'd be all in favour of that. But I think this consideration of how do you make opera more popular to ordinary people in a way that it is on the continent, and the way in which, often in the past, the theatre is... There are lots of cheap tickets to the theatre. The National, you've got this. Ones. Yeah, there are expensive, but the National Theatre, they do the £30 ticket, don't they?
I'm glad to say everyone this evening is playing to stereotype that the two Conservatives are in favour of the free market pricing, no subsidies. Our lefty balance is banging the drum for the taxpayer picking up the tab, as always. Anyway, we've had an unusually sensible statement for a public body. A spokesman for the RBA said, "We introduced demand-led pricing this season, meaning ticket prices are now subject to change based on audience demand. This approach enables us to maximise ticket revenue and support a financially sustainable future. A substantial proportion of our tickets are offered at the lowest price point. Well, that seems to me perfectly reasonable. But in typical bureaucratic speak, an Arts Council England spokesman said this: decisions on the artistic programming and day-to-day running of our funded organisations sit with their management team and board. We want our investment, for which they mean government spending of taxpayers' money, to help build a resilient and world-leading cultural sector that's fit for the future. Yawnio. Anyway, thank you very much to my panel, who are definitely not Yawnio. And in a moment...
And there were posters all over the place telling you we need more people in the forces. And I thought, why don't I join up?
To mark Armistice Day, a regular panellist and friend of the programme, Dr. Tessa Dunlop, spoke to a 101-year-old former gunner girl, Grace Taylor, to hear about her experiences from World War II. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Well, we were discussing dynamic pricing and the mail mogs have come in. Richard says, Royal Opera for £425, I'd sooner be listening to Blues Down the Pub for the price of a pint. Or you could tune in to GB News for free. And Linda says, after listening to the clip of the amazing soprano singing the Queen of the Night's first aria, I would say that £400 per ticket is a bargain. If any of the arts were appreciated in this country, sadly, opera is very much on the decline, and the public has no idea of what it's losing. Well, I agree with that, but there we go. So now, to commemorate Armistice Day, we hear from an extraordinary woman. It's a really wonderful interview. Grace Taylor lied about her age to join the Auxiliary Territorial Service aged just 16 and became a gunner girl defending Britain from the Luftwaffe attacks. Now aged 101, she spoke to the regular panellist and friend of the programme, Dr. Tessa Dunlop to reflect on service survival and her memories of the Second World War.
I've come down to Poole in Dorset for this very special 80th Armistice anniversary of the end of World War II, because today this is the home of Grace Taylor, one of the final few surviving gunner girls who night after night served to keep our skies safe from the German Luftwaffe. And today she's 101 and a very special friend. Grace, I'm coming on up. So Grace, let's track back, not actually to the end of the war, but for a bit of context. 1939. How old are you and what are you doing?
I was 14 when they put me into service. At least Dad knew that, you know, I'd have a clean bed and I'll be fed, and I used to get £2 a month.
So you were a live-in servant for another family?
Yes.
When the war breaks out, and you're living away in domestic service, what do you understand?
I didn't know much about it, apart from the fact that by this time I'd moved in with a family at Brentwood, and I used to love ballroom dancing. And I used to go to the local dance hall. Most of the chaps there were in uniform because they were from the local barracks. And I met up with this chap, and then he started walking me home. He was my one and only first boyfriend.
What does it mean being a boyfriend back then? What did it involve?
Well, it just involved him meeting me at the dance and walking me back home after.
And
back to
a
my
little kiss?
Oh yes, yeah, eventually, not straight away.
Oh, okay.
He came to where I worked, where I was living, to tell me that he was being posted away. He had his kit bag and everything with him. And he said goodbye, and I didn't see him anymore. But I missed him because he was my one and only friend, really. When you're in service, you're on your own. And there were posters all over the place telling you we need more people in the forces. And I thought, why don't I join up? So I went down to Southend and I signed up, and then I was waiting for the letter from them to tell them when to go. The letter came, they told me to report to Glencarver Barracks at Leicester.
It must have been a bit like escaping this lonely job.
Yeah.
And had you been honest?
It was exciting, really, because, you know, you don't know what you're going to come up against when you get there. And from then on, of course, you're doing your training, you're being dished out with your uniforms and taught how to salute and how to march.
But you're only 16, so I don't understand. You have to be 17 and a half.
That's right. Well, by this time, I was 16 and a half.
Okay.
And I put my age on.
So you lied?
I did.
This is 1941 by the time this is happening, isn't it? There's been a sea change. There's a recognition increasingly that we need female heft.
That's right.
In order to counter the threat of Nazism.
Yep.
And tell me what happens.
Yes, they then sent us to Arborfield. And that's where you go through lots and lots of interviews. You don't tell them what you want to do. They decide what you're going to be good at. They decided they were going to put me into the Royal Artillery. You're trained on these different instruments, you see, on the, as you know, the height finder, predictor, and the spotter, and you're trained how to use them. You would spend hours and hours and hours on aircraft recognition because you needed to know all your planes.
In early 1941, a decision was made for the first time ever that women could serve on operational sites, i.e. places that put them in direct danger, direct contact.
Every man who can fight is needed for fighting, and it is up to the women of Britain to take over the non-combatant duties.
And what's fascinating is you're one of the original women to work on a gun site. There was over 1,000 gun sites. Yeah. It was like the equivalent of the sort of dome in the sky that was protecting Britain, and the way that that was protected was from all these gun sites.
That's right. You're trying to get the planes before they get over this country to stop them before they got to the cities.
And so you guys were tested, and the cream of the crop, and that was you, Grace, selected for the gun sites.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How important is that for you? There you are.
You don't know at the time, you just do as you're told.
It wasn't an easy start for you, Grace, was it? Tell us what happened when you were 11. It was a very difficult time in your little family.
Well, my mum died when I was 11. I didn't even know she was ill. But she'd been in hospital for a week. And Dad used to go and see her in hospital each night. And we would have to stay, when we come from school, we had to stay with an auntie while he was at hospital. And we were walking home one night after he picked us up from auntie's. And I said, well, who's with Mum now then, Dad? And he said, nobody, she died. I can see it now. And it didn't seem long after that he, well, of course, I understand now, of course, why I don't know where he found this woman. She was nothing at all like my mum. But stepmums don't colour you.
It's like a rebirth almost for you, isn't it? Joining the female army.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed it. I know it was wartime and we went through some bad times, but I really enjoyed being in the army. Yeah.
Belonging.
If you are actually on duty, being on the guns, we used to do it a week at a time because you could be up all night. Night after night after night. So you had to sleep nearer to the command post.
Were you ever
so
afraid
when the
siren goes off and when the raiders are coming in?
No, you just grab your steel helmet and your respirator and run. In 1944, I married Bob. Oh, Bob and I were married.
That was quick work, Grace, wasn't it?
What, 44?
Yeah, how old were you then?
20.
Oof. Where did you meet Bob? Let me guess, on a gun site.
He was on a gun site. He was one of our drivers.
No, I bet he was.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't a bad time in my life, and I mean, I still go to the Royal Artillery meetings now.
Come on, you do more than that. Here in Poole, you are very definitely more important than that.
I'm the president of the Poole branch of the Royal Artillery Association.
It's not bad, age 101, is it? Come on.
Well, I've said to our chairman, I said to him, if you want to, choose somebody younger now, he said, Grace, I wouldn't dream of it.
No way. Give me an idea of when really you started leaning into your service identity. When you leave the war, you get married, you're married, you enter civilian life. When do you start looking back?
Oh, not for a long, long time. It didn't happen till after Bob died.
So much, much later in your life?
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting, the sea change?
Yeah.
Once you get to dewy-eyed old age, you've got time to look back, time to remember.
Right, yeah.
And also, I think Britain, our empire's gone. We're looking for an identity we can feel proud of.
That's right.
Grace.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we can feel proud of you. You are straightforwardly pretty goddamn cool. And so you can remember, and through you, we remember. You're 101 years old. You were one of the first women on an operational gun site. And I would like your opinion on what it means to be British after all this time.
I get the impression by just watching the telly and listening to the radio that we are envied by a lot of countries.
Are you still proud to be British, Grace?
Oh, of course. Oh, yes. I wouldn't want to be anything else, no.
Well, wasn't that absolutely wonderful? And how lucky we are as a nation to have people like Grace Taylor, Mrs. Taylor, who served the nation during the war and allowed us the freedom that we now enjoy, because without them, we would have ended up under the German jackboot. And Tessa, of course, she's such a force of nature and comes on this programme regularly to argue with me. But what a wonderful presentation she gave, an interview she did with Grace. Anyway, that's all from me. Up next, it's the one and only Patrick Christie's. Patrick, any news from Somerset this evening?
Not from Somerset, Jacob, but plenty of news from elsewhere, I'm afraid. So I've got Robert Jemrick on. He absolutely skewered David Lammy in the House of Commons earlier. Also, Labour is frankly ruining people's lives with their incompetence when it comes to the economy. Unemployment up. We're going to talk about that. Ed Miliband is flying to Brazil twice at the taxpayers' expense. I've got some pictures of him over there living a life of luxury at a climate conference. And NHS bosses are claiming that going round to people's houses that have got the St George's flag outside is like going into the houses of convicted sex offenders. All that and more.
warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening. It's time for your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through the next 24 hours, there will be more rain to come for many places, but also some dry and bright weather, particularly across a central slice of the UK. Now, we currently have an area of low pressure out towards the west, and this is driving some blustery winds and some wet weather due to a frontal system that's marching its way across. We have a front clearing away towards the north as we go overnight, but lingering across the far north of Scotland, and then a front pushing eastwards, but also lingering across some southern southeastern parts, so a fair bit of rain to come. But in between those two wetter areas where things will stay pretty mild,